In this video, we will go over the 3.1 and 3.2 Training Assessment Study Guide. So for number 1 and 2, the best idea is to make a mapping diagram. Mapping diagram lets you have a visual representation to see if the relation is a function or not. So a few rules that you need to remember about the x's and y's. If it repeats, write it once, and then write it smallest to biggest. Now we're going to do the same thing for the y's. So the smallest y is 1, 2 repeat, so I'm going to write it once, then 5, and then 6. Now after you do that, you figure out what maps to what. So -3 maps to 6, -1 maps to 2, 0 maps to 1, 1 maps to 2, and then -3 matches to 5. Now -3 makes it not a function because it maps to 5 and 6. So this would not be a function. For number 2, you're going to do the same thing. I recommend looking at the multiple choice first. So here are my x's. Write them in order. Here are my y's. Write them in order. And then map them out. So 3 maps to 9. 2 maps to 6. 4 maps to 7. And then 5 maps to 9. Now the one that we're trying to figure out, this right here is our given. So it says when x is 4, y equals 6. So which multiple choice down here makes it not a function? It's when x maps to 7, because we already had the x of 4 map to 6. So that means it cannot be 7 as well. So the answer choice is C. Now for number 3, identify reasonable domain and range. Gasoline can be whole numbers and decimals. You can have 1 gallon of gas, you can have 2.5 gallons of gas, you can have 3.25 gallons of gas. And the range would also be whole numbers and decimals. I guess I should say positive decimals, because you can have $3.25 worth of gas, you can have $6 of gas, you can have 7.80 cents worth of gallons of gas. So if you made a table, that's fine too. If you did 1, which is 325, if you did 2, which is 650, just give me a few numbers. That would be fine. Now for number 4, a business tracks its expenses each month for a year. So from January to December. There are constraints. There's only month 1 through month 2, and all whole numbers in between. The reason why it's whole numbers is because we're talking about months. So January is 1 month, February is the 2nd month, March is the 3rd month, April, May, June, July, all of those. So if you write 1 through 12, all the whole numbers in between, or 1, 2, 3, and kept going to 12, that would be fine. Number 5, you want to look at the domain. Yes, the domain can be letters. Yes, they can be words, doesn't matter. So the domain is A, B, C, and D, whereas the range is our Y value. So that's chargers, tractors, Wolverines, Spartans, and Tigers. Now, if you look at the x's, each one only maps to one y. So this is a function. Each domain has exactly one range. And if you want to use each input has one output, each x only has one y, that would be fine. Even though I made a mistake typing, if you don't write them in order, it's not going to be that bad. I'm not going to mark you down too much, if any. I'll just be more careful on my typos. So then my range is -5, 4, 12, and 13. Once again, you want to look. It's not a function because 9 is mapped to two different numbers and 15 is mapped. So this is not a function. Try to not use the word it. Be more specific. You can say the domain of 9 and 15 map to more than one y value. The Weather Service is recording the high temperature each day for a year. They map the number of each day to the temperature. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, so on and so forth. This would be a discrete function because we're talking about day 1, day 2, day 3. And notice that I'm only talking about the domain. The domain is each day because we're talking about time. And right now, because they're recording temperature each day, it's not half a day. They're not skipping a day. It's very specific. So it's discrete. Because the days can only be whole numbers. Is the domain for each situation continuous or discrete? Temperature at noon, that would be continuous. Temperatures can be decimals, whole numbers. A number of people here, this would be discrete. Number of tickets sold, that would be discrete as well. And you guys can write your own sentences for that. Now for number 9, it's not meant to be confusing. You want to use this equation to evaluate. So we're going to do 2 first. So we're going to plug in 2 wherever you see an x. And then what we're going to do, so this was f of 2. Now we're going to do f of 7, and I'll plug it in the calculator as soon as I write it all. And I prefer you writing it first, so then you can make sure that you don't make any mistakes. So add calculator. Make sure that you use the minus sign and not the negative for all of these. If you do use the negative by mistake, the parentheses will eliminate, they'll go away because the calculator thinks that you are doing multiplying. Now I'm going to plug in f of 7 as well. So wherever there was an x, I put a 7. Then 3 minus 7. So for f of 2, the answer is -4.6. For f of 7, it's going to be 8.4. Now remember the instructions say to add those two, and I do need to see this work. So I'm going to go back to the calculator. Choose negative if that pops up, because it's a negative 4.6 plus 8.4. So then my answer is 3.8. And now part 2 is just evaluating when it's 4. Notice that I'm not touching the left-hand side. That's just showing the reader what you're plugging in to the equation to evaluate it. Make sure that you're taking your time with this. It's really easy to make a mistake. All right, we get 0.6. Now for number 10, to find the range, I'm just giving you the domain of -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. All you have to do is plug it in, just like you did for number 9. So like I said before, I actually like to write it all out so I know what I'm typing in the calculator. You can do it one at a time. That's a personal preference. But this is the work that I need to see. Then f of 2 equals -2, parentheses 2 minus 3, and then f of 3. All right, so -2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. -2 times -1 is 2. Minus 3 is -1. And if you want to, you can use the calculator for sure. Notice that even though I'm putting parentheses, the calculator knows that they're not needed. I like to have the calculator do that and tell me if I need them or not. -2 times 1 is -2, minus 3 is -5. And then -2 times -2, I'm sorry, -2 times 2 is -4, minus 3 is -7. And then -6 minus 3 is -9. Now when you write them in order, that means smallest to biggest. Notice how I box up my answer. That would go a long way with me if you could do that, please. So then I'm not searching for your answer. All right, so for the domain, every point on the x has a domain. So this first point right here would be -1.5. This point is -1. This is -0.5, 0, then 0.5, then 1, 1.5, then 2. Now if you want to write the ordered pairs out, you can. You can do it in a table. It's up to you. Now my y values start from the smallest. So my y value, the smallest, is -0.5, then 0, then 0.5, then 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. So once again, if you make the table, you can do that. So negative 1.5 comma 3 is the first one. This point right here is negative 1 comma 2.5. So then you can list them smallest to biggest. Now these, you're going to do the list in spreadsheet. So I always recommend doing a new document, clicking no. Number 4. Now you want to make sure that you label these. So then 6, 4, 2, 0, negative 2. Now make sure you show a blue box, and then you're going to do number 4, number 1, and number 3. Now the only two things that you care about here is labeling. We call the X list X. We call the Y list Y. And then our M shows to be negative 2. Our B shows to be 6. So linear function, you can write y equals, or f of x equals, negative 2x plus 6. So this equation or function rule represents this table. And now we're going to do the exact same thing for the next problem. Remember, you have to start a new document. You can only have one list and spreadsheet open at a time. Even though the table is listed f of x, you can still call it y. So just type in the numbers. Make sure you have a blue box. We're going to go to stats, number 4, stat calculation, number 1, linear regression. I'm going to ignore that. I went too far. All right, so my M is negative 7, and my B is 171. So f of x equals negative 7x plus 171. Now, with that being said, this is the problem where you have to have two tabs open. If you hit Control Doc, it will give you an option. You want to add graphs, and then type in the equation, negative 7x. Don't forget the x. If you do, it will be just a straight line. I understand that you can't see the graph. Think about it. The y-intercept is 171. Ry only goes up to 6.67. So let's just do the table and see which point. So 12 comma 87, that's there on the table. 9 comma 118 is not. It's actually 9 108. You can check the other ones as well, but there should be only one answer choice. That's wrong. So negative 15 comma 276 is there, and then negative 8 comma 227 is there. Now for number 14, I really recommend you just adding a new page and graphing it instead of evaluating it. So if you hit Control T, I will give you the X's on the test. I just forgot to type it. So negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. So then it's 9, 8.25, 7.5, 6.75, and 6. So negative 2 comma 9. I'll make the graph bigger on your test as well. Negative 1 comma 8.25. That's in between 7 and 8. And with decimals, everybody, you just need to round. Second semester, we're going to be graphing decimals a lot. So just approximate where it would be on the graph. And that's all I'm looking for. Same with number 15. You can have multiple graphs on these tabs. It's only the listen spreadsheet that you have to redo every time. So just open a new page. Make sure your equation looks like the one that I gave you. Once again, I will give you these values, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Those are just common domains because it's right in the middle of the graph. -0.33, just round the best you can. -1, 0. And it's going to be hard to graph these decimals, but I think you guys can handle it. -2, -0.33, -1, 0, 0.33. There we go. As long as I see the points, draw your line the best you can. Use your ID or a ruler. And those are the answers for the study guide. Please email me if you have any more specific questions that I can help you with. Thank you, everybody.